slides. Well, thank you so much for coming here to the Physics 5 Slides competition to hear me talk about the absolutely, unbelievably most important discovery of the year, which happened right here at Weber State, of course. KIC 846852. Woo! I mean, did you not just go, oh, she's really going to talk about it? That's amazing. So, you may have heard of this object. So, this object, we have an important question hanging out there in the ether about this object, and all astronomers everywhere on Earth are working very hard on this. Is this object the result of an anomalously large planetary collision or aliens? I'm not saying it's aliens. It's aliens. So according to Bayes' theorem, we have this awesome kind of way of calculating out probabilities, right, from Bayesian statistics. And so we have the probability of the collision folded in with the probability that it's an alien, and we find that if we just calculate it this way, we should be able to figure out, even without knowing anything, or taking any more data, but just from statistics, that it's aliens. And I want to point out the Carroll corollary. Given any two equally improbable events, one of them must be true, and of course, it's aliens. This is a famous corollary, a theorem attributed to Brad Carroll because he was around way back when this was actually first thought of, and he's the only one still here. So we can take a look at the data. And we have a graph, and graphs have already been introduced to you very competently by Dr. Johnston, who pointed out that there's usually a side and another side. In this particular case, we have the normalized flux, which may I please just digress and point out that this has nothing to do with capacitors. And on this axis we have the time, and this is the time in incredibly ridiculous units in which we have to always take this offset into account. 2,454,833, and you may be wondering what those numbers actually represent. And they are, of course, it's obvious and completely natural, they're the last time that the lunar phases and the eclipse timing matched up with the Roman tax calendar. Obvious. Everyone should know that. So, if we look at this data and we look very, very carefully, we can find that there are events. There's one, there's one, there's one. And you might think that this is just noise, but that's because you have not zoomed in sufficiently far. And then we see a big dip here where we identify a potential debris field, and then over here we get chatter. And the thing that we notice about chatter is that it always comes from intelligent species, especially ones who are just stalling. And that could be aliens. So, potential debris field, aliens. So we have many types of alien civilizations, and we rank them on the Kardashevian Scale. And on the Kardashevian Scale, we have Kims. And a type 1 Kim emits 10 to the 18 watts of energy all the time, in all directions, on all forms of social media. I'm out of Kardashian.
Chloe!
Chloe's! We have Chloe Kardashians, which are surprisingly even louder on on social media than Kim Kardashian's, because you would expect that Kim would be the queen of all Kardashians. But actually, it's because of the inverse probability. Let me go back to the Bayesian statistics, because that's pretty important, right? So we're actually really asking about the probability of Kim with Chloe, or perhaps it's Chloe with Kim. I have to think about which one's the alien. Okay. And then down here, of course, we have Kenai. And that's at type 3 on the Kardashean scale, 10 to the 46 watts on all forms of social media all the time. So we sit and we wonder, and we ask ourselves, self? Is it collisions? Is it aliens? Or is it both? And I cannot express to you how absolutely important this question is. Because if it turns out to be collisions, that is going to be something super amazing that has never, ever been detected before. But if you've been watching the History Channel, aliens! So for comparison, just to compare the wattage of Kardashians versus Dr. Schroeder. Dr. Schroeder continuously emits 190 watts on social media. And the normal household does somewhat better than that. The entire world combined is at 2 times 10 to the 13 watts. I want to flip back here because it's obvious that the entire world does not include the Kardashians. Because if it did, then this number would have to be somewhat larger. And so we see that most of the rest of the world is entirely involved in exporting tools every year, which is not anything like watts. And I don't know why they don't use real units. And this is a ridiculous way to measure time. It's completely arbitrary. There is no way for you to go back and think about where is the 0 point. Unlike the other way of measuring time, which was when all those important astronomical cycles lined up with the Roman text. So we have some assumptions. If we assume a 3% global energy growth rate here on the Earth, we can ask how long will it be before Dan Schroeder buys a clothes dryer? And what we find is that sometime around the year 2500, Dan Schroeder's clothes dryer will be using up the entire energy output of the total galaxy. Which may seem kind of incomprehensible, but I think we'll just leave it there. So we can ponder collisions, aliens, Dan's dryer.
Do we have time for a question, Kylie? Oh, there's somebody in the... Stacey, you pick.
Shelley.
So, with the conclusions of something in Dan's dryer, where do the Kardashians fit?
Well, the Kardashians, see, the thing is that Dan's dryer overcomes the Kardashians right here around the year 2200.
Thank you.
Yeah. Johnny.
Yes, so I assume you got the radio signal from the 3 Kardashians, right? They collided, right? So what was the last thing they said before they collided?
You know, we're working on that, and we're working on it because it appears to be in some kind of code. And we're trying to decode what the Kardashians actually mean. They say things that are completely inexplicable. Do you think there's actually meaning there somewhere? Because the words keep repeating. We're just not sure.
All right, let's thank our speakers.